Hey guys, it's me back with another video finally. So, I know I haven't uploaded a lot lately, and it's primarily because of all the horrible stuff I've been seeing on the news. The concentration camps at the border, the fires at the Amazon rainforest, the two deadly shootings, and most recently all the deportations of U.S. citizens who are as much U.S. citizens as I am a Canadian citizen, who are just being deported to countries they have no recent affiliations with and are dying. It's just when I hear all that stuff that's happening, it doesn't feel welcoming to talk about a story that I've gone through or something optimistic, because it seems like that would see me as insensitive. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I thought for now it's almost time school's starting, and you know what? I am just in the mood to just be with you guys and talk a little bit, reminisce about some of my school days. Now, no one gets through high school or college and university unscathed, but you know what? I don't mean to brag, but I've been doing very well at school recently. And you know what? There have been quite a few different assignments from college and university that have been very hard to get through, but everyone goes through that sort of stuff. So as I'm doing this top 5 on these assignments that were very hard to get through, assignments that I thought I might just have to just give up on, assignments where I thought, how can any of us ever get through this? I realized that I hope you don't get the idea that I'm like hating on my school or anything. These are just some funny stories and some stuff that I just didn't think I would get through, so that's all there is to it. I'm not trying to bash any of my teachers, and I'm just trying to make a fun little video before school starts. So with that, let's do this top 5. So the 5th one is the most recent, number 5. It was an assignment that had to do with this video game named Kona. It's pretty recent and it's Canadian, and it looks pretty well made for such a low budget feature. So what we had to do was we had to at first play the game, or at least get to understand it as much as we could, and then we had to write a 2,500 word essay on why it relates to Canadian culture. And we needed 5 to 7 scholarly sources to back up our claims. We also needed screenshots of certain examples. Now, it's no secret that I love to write. So oftentimes, if you ask me to type out a 5,000 word fictional story, chances are I'll say make it 7,000. But for 2,500, that's probably one of, if not the biggest single essay I've ever had to write. And not only that, but there really wasn't much about the game that I could see really referencing into that much of a context. And everyone else was really sobbing about this as well. I was doing all right. I was actually doing pretty decently because I got lucky with finding my sources. The actual game, while it is well made, there is very little actual interaction with people. It's a survival game in the Canadian wilderness. The folklore and the Easter eggs, apart from that, there wasn't really that much to go on. So somehow I managed to get to 2,500 words, but I'd say a lot of us BS'd our way through some of it. Number 4 was this assignment during my second year in journalism in first semester, and we had to do a project called The Land Where We Stand. It was something where each of us had to find a place in Oshawa or somewhere close by it. We had to figure out like its origins and what it might have used to be like, and it was also had to be a multimedia feature. We had to have a photo album, we had to make a video, we had to make an audio story, and we had to make just a full printed out story. I ended up getting lucky again, and I found a place that has a lot of interesting history. A grocery store chain called Nob Hill Farms, a massive supermarket that used to have a few places all around Canada until they all closed down way before I was born, and Oshawa's building is the only one that hasn't been renovated into something else. So my teacher was very excited to see what I'd done, and I was pretty impressed with everything I managed to uncover, thanks to a family friend who lives near there and was actually at the opening of the actual retail store. But when it came to all the information I ended up finding, I felt like I couldn't do the same for each and every part of this feature. The teacher said that it all had to be on the same sort of angle of the story of the place, but I just couldn't do that. There were so many different stories I'd heard, so I ended up improvising a little bit, but it all turned out very well. Coming in at number 3 was when things started to get really bumpy. Number 3 took place last year, first semester. We had to do a big research assignment with about 5 to 7 scholarly sources, and we had to do a research project on just a topic that is not very explored. The teacher's angle was something maybe completely unexplored. And well, and I could understand how there can be certain angles to stories that aren't very popular, but let's face it, when it comes to finding something that is so worth investigating that you need 5 to 7 scholarly sources, it was the very first real scholarly sourced assignment I ever did. So to do it properly, I asked my teacher for an example, for a good scholarly source on what we agreed on. And I was given this book that I took out from the library, and I read almost the entire book. It was a 270-page book. I read almost all of it, took many different notes, and then when part A of the assignment was brought back, I was told that I couldn't use the notes from that book because it was published by HarperCollins, and HarperCollins was not a scholarly publication. Despite the fact that on Google Scholar, if you typed that book in, which is what we did in the first place, over 1,000 people cited it for all sorts of different scholarly research articles. And at the time, I didn't realize that as long as you had 5 to 7 of the officially scholarly resources, you could still use some of the notes from that article. But at the time, I didn't know that, and I was just so pissed off. I thought several times that I would just that I just wouldn't care, that I had too little energy, and I felt it was completely unfair. I all of a sudden didn't care as much about getting a horrible mark than I was about just finishing up that assignment for good. But so I was under a lot of distress because of that assignment. We're told that, like, school is a game where you have to follow the teacher's instructions. But if the teacher is not sure of his or her instructions, then what are you to do? Some of my friends told me a few stories, like how this teacher suggested one thing, and after a few days, she said, no, do something else. And then a few days after that, she said, no, do something else again. Have you ever had something happen to you like that? So fortunately, after a bit of turmoil, we managed to get onto good terms about this. We both understood where we were coming from. And so the last part was we had to do a video on it. So to go out with a bang, to go out with something that really showed that I really cared about this, I made an animation video. I did several doodles, I imported them, I photoshopped the backgrounds out, and well, I was very proud of what I was able to accomplish. Maybe I'll upload it onto YouTube one day soon, because it is pretty gorgeous if you ask me. Number 2 was the very first very, very tough thing that I had to do at college. And I thought after I finished this, that there was no way I would ever have to do anything harder for school until I got to number 1, but that's a story in another 4 minutes. The assignment was in my photography class. And what we were supposed to do was, over the course of 2 weeks, get 25 self-portraits. We had to successfully walk up to 25 people we had no prior affiliations with and ask if we could get their picture and their first name. Let's say that we had to do them all at the school. We didn't have to, but imagine if we did. And over 2 weeks and 10 days of actual school, that would mean talking to 2.5 strangers every day and asking for their name and photo. I felt like a creep doing that. And obviously there were a few people that said, no thanks, sorry, which I completely understood. Like you and I both talk to strangers every once in a while. Sometimes we pass us in the streets, we bump into them and say sorry. Sometimes we say hi as we're walking around the town. But that was like more people than I've had to really get to know on a bigger level than that than I usually get in like maybe half a year. And also, I was going under something very personal. There was something that I was heartbroken about, something where I felt I really had to piece myself back together, and that assignment really felt like just a salt to the wound. But I somehow managed to get it done. And then a few weeks later, I get my mark back and it was a 64 out of 100. The thing was, apparently 9 of the 25 images were either just a little bit blurry or they like didn't get the person's shoulder. It was ludicrous because 64 out of 100, if you do the math, that's 16 out of 25. That pretty much means that 9 of the photos I brought in just didn't count toward the grade at all. But the reason I found that horrible is because not only was this the hardest assignment I had ever done at the time, but that would make it no different as if I submitted those 16 perfect photos and didn't bother asking 9 other people. And so I felt if something is a bit blurry then or a bit outside, then okay, but surely it should count for 50% of what it would be otherwise. To this day, I feel like I deserved an 82. I like to act like it was like that. And I tried to appeal that grade, but then there was something else that really got in the way and as soon as that was resolved, as soon as I was able to appeal that grade, I was just out of energy. So I just knew that, okay, the 64 is a false representation, but at least my report card ended up being okay. It was an assignment surprisingly only worth 5% of my total grade. God knows for all the effort we all had to do, especially me, it was like, should have been about 20%. But anyway, not complaining anymore. So what's the one that was the hardest ever? Well, number 1 was this thing called a feature, and it was during my second semester, so right before I was to graduate and get an internship for journalism, so I was under a lot of pressure. So this feature, it was a journalism story. The one that I got to do was a how-to article, and we had to have at least 3 interviews. And so to do that, we obviously needed a very thought-provoking sort of subject, something that felt like it merited several different points of view. And what I came up with was the voice acting industry in Canada. Because I've been watching cartoons, well, obviously pretty much everyone watches cartoons when they're little kids, but I still do some of the time. And so I've grown up hearing a lot of different voices and feeling like there are these people who live near me who have really impacted my life and made me become who I am today because of their attitude. And also, I to this day, I want to grow up to be a voice actor one day. So this was also a bit of a personal field because I really legitimately wanted to know what the audition process was like, how hard it is to find work. When my teacher approved that idea, well, she came up with most of it, I realized I had to interview some people who have really put together history for me. I was very scared because I felt like actors are really high-profile people. I hope they'll be willing to give me the time of day. I got very behind. I kept procrastinating on sending out emails because I was just so nervous. And I didn't have one interview by the time the assignment was just 6 days away. I was sick to my stomach. I felt worthless. I felt like because of this, I wasn't going to graduate. I had too little time to come up with something else. And then, out of the blue, I finally got a very good one. And then on Friday afternoon, I said screw it to my fears, and I went into a recording booth and did a phone call with someone who has voice-directed celebrities even. And then on Tuesday, the night it was due, there was this one voice actor who agreed to call me, and it was just 6 hours before the whole thing was due. He was so happy. He was so nice. I couldn't believe how nice he was to me, despite the fact I don't just send him an email. And so I had 4 interviews total, and I managed to hand it in at 11:59 sharp. I was biting my nails because in the journalism world, like, when it's due, it is due. And so if this was submitted at 12 o'clock, I would have gotten a 0. If my computer glitched, I should have taken the time and responsibility to be aware of its potential glitches and worked on it a little more fluently. That's the sort of thing the teachers would have told me if this was sent in at 12 o'clock rather than 11:59 p.m. But I managed to do it. My computer didn't glitch, and I had a smile on my face for an entire day after I submitted that project. And to this day, I still keep in touch with that one voice actor who was so nice to me. I'm training with him for a bit of voice acting right now, and I really want to reach out to the others one day soon, because I really want to get to know all of them even more for how much they helped me and how nice they were to me. After talking to them, my shyness was evaporated just so much. And it really prepared me for my journalism internship. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much. And so I'm curious, what are some assignments that you've had to go through that you felt you could never accomplish but did manage to somehow? I would love to find out. And in the meantime, I'm really looking forward to returning to school. I'm looking forward to meeting my roommate. I'm looking forward to seeing so many of my friends again and just returning to my home away from home. And I hope you all have a great school year. And I can't wait to make more videos with you soon. See ya.